But it's so hard when we are raised in a culture from a very young age. It's very much programmed into our subconscious that we are only worthy when we're of service or producing something. And we're only lovable when we're of service or producing something. And even though my rational brain has long since divested of that notion, it's still in my body. And so it's really, really hard. And slow, tiny shifts and continuing to sit in reflection, and with luck, the next time, remember that lesson so that I can just give myself the day.
Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back, light beings, to another episode of Soul Podcast. So excited to be in conversation with you today. I think this is going to be a really perfect episode for this time of year. And if you're enjoying SoulPod and the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, send us your questions. This helps us as a small team and female-founded team to get the word out and continue to do what we're doing. So thank you. And today I'm joined by Eileen March, who is a spiritual coach, energy healer, podcast host herself, author, and slow living witch, which I love that phrase, slow living witch, devoted to helping women reclaim their power, reconnect with their bodies, and re-enchant their everyday lives. So she has a background in both midwifery and religious studies. Eileen bridges the sacred and the practical, weaving together science, spirit, and soul, which we love at SoulPod. And Eileen is the founder of My Luminous Life and the creator of Unleash Your Inner Witch, a powerful program designed to help spiritually curious women remember their magic and live with more meaning, fulfillment, rest, and peace. She's passionate about dismantling hustle culture, which we will definitely talk about, listening to the body's rhythms, and creating brave, nurturing spaces where women can feel held, seen, and safe enough to transform, which is such a great jumping off point. But thank you, Eileen, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Crystal. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you have your cat, too, for those that are watching the video.
She always makes an appearance sometimes sooner than later. This is Edna.
Cats, oh, so cute. They're very tuned in, that's for sure. So I would love to start off understanding a little bit more about your journey. And I find that usually people have a moment of initiation or a moment where it kind of catalyzes their spiritual journey. And I'm just curious what that was for you.
That's a great question. It's interesting, as I've shared my story over the years, I often struggle to find that moment. I know a lot of people come to spiritual work through a dark night of the soul, and I feel like mine was like perhaps just many little dark nights of the soul, but the place that I returned to as kind of a reawakening point, because I think like so many people, I was far more connected when I was young, like a young girl. And as an adult, I had shut down my brain to like anything that wasn't factually, scientifically proven. But when I was working as a midwife, there was a woman in town who every year for the Day of the Midwife, which happens in May, she would offer a free float in her float tank in her home studio to the midwives. And I remember going to this woman's house and walking in and being like, "Ooh, this is not just, that kind of clean, sterile vision of a commercial float tank. This was like a witch's den in the best possible way. Like, there was herbs. It smelled of incense. She was barefoot in a skirt to greet me, despite there being snow on the ground outside, because May in Calgary is often snowy. and having this experience in the float tank, and then coming out of it and flipping through a book of birthdays that she had in the room. I had like an hour and a half to myself afterwards to journal. There was books, there was crystals, there was tarot decks, and flipping to my birthday and starting to read. And
I know which book you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's like the one.
There's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was like it cracked a door back open in my mind, in my body, of there's more than we might understand here. I remember reading like the day before and the day after, and just to see, am I just reading into it? And it was very, very clearly like, this is for me. And that was like the first little peek behind the veil. But for a few more years, I was not safe to explore that curiosity. I was in a relationship with a man who was like as far atheist as you can go, and very derisive of anything that wasn't, again, provable by cold, hard, rational, scientific thought, which we didn't have quite as much quantum physics back then. So it took until I left him before I really made the leap and opened my mind and the door to a more spiritual life.
That's so powerful. And the container that your life is currently in can either catalyze, like the pressures can get so intense that it starts to like catalyze that awakening, or it kind of like subdues it for a while. But then you kind of find, like you did, and like we've talked about, you and I off camera, is we've both had these kind of relationships with very, very rational people. And I think a lot of people can relate to this in their families when you start to awaken and experience things that you can't logically, rationally always explain to others. And there's so much social, cultural, stories around weirdness and craziness. And I mean, what is crazy, and it's hard to give yourself that permission, especially early on in your journey. And I totally relate to you on coming from that rational space. That was very much my story as well, working in biotech and the sciences. And on the one hand, it's such a lovely tool and lens to understand the world. But I think we forget that we're understanding the world through a very particular lens, which is the human capacity to observe, limited to those senses. So of course, there's ways we just haven't been able to perceive and share as a perception with others. So I think so many people can relate to that challenge in relationships and with their families. And you mentioned something about like the safety element to transform, which I really like, because I don't think we talk about it enough. That transformation, we all want that. We want that change. We want to become who it is that we came here to become, and it does require courage. But it also requires like a certain knowledge around creating the safety for you to be able to even be able to transform. So I'd love to hear more from your perspective about that, creating that safety for the transformation container. Yeah,
again, it's so interesting thinking about that part of my life, because I didn't have so much of the language that I have now. But there was a really inherent knowing that within the confines of that relationship, I mean, it wasn't safe for me to be me, let alone to be me exploring parts of myself I had never explored before. There was all sorts of reasons for that. And And that sense of having to cram myself into a box of what I could be and who I could be, and watch what I was saying and make sure I wasn't hurting his feelings or any of that kind of stuff, was led to some pretty serious physical manifestations. I ended up with heartburn that I was medicated for, like taking a daily prescription medication to manage this excruciating heartburn that would wake me up several times a week in the night. And I love that I can say, I ran out of that medication just after I left him, a few days after I left him, and I've had heartburn a handful of times since. That was,
oh my gosh, isn't that so
6 or 7 years ago now?
fascinating, right? You're like, the term heartburn is so interesting to me as a term.
It's like, okay, your heart is not happy here.
There might be some messaging there.
just a little. It's not subtle.
Yeah.
But that sense of safety then for me, it was first creating a space of my own. I moved into my own home. I'd never lived on my own before. And so it felt like I had to kind of go inward and create that private space to start to explore some of this. And even as I continued down the path of spirituality, it took me a long time when I started to take my healer's training to be able to even speak about it with the people that were in my life, my family, the partner that I ended up with, who now lives with me. He's still a little like, but I'm just getting more and more confident and safe feeling within my own self. I guess it's my own wisdom, my own comfort with and confidence in knowing myself. I think that has given me the sense of safety that allows me to continue to explore things that might otherwise feel a little bit woo.
Yeah, we love the woo. Yeah, that, and I'm married to a lovely man that is a self-proclaimed atheist. And I think we talked a little bit about this, but it's been such an interesting journey. And it was very important to me that early on in the relationship, I knew that there was some potential tension in that space. And so we had some hard conversations around, I was like, I totally respect your views. This is what I'm opening up into. Can you at least be in the room and talk about it? Because if that's not the case, then we probably have too big of a divide. And to your point, I need to feel safe to be who it is that I am.
Yeah.
As long as I'm not hurting anybody in that process, right? I'm being authentically who it is that I am, deeply, and that has to be okay. That's one of those, for me, like a non-negotiable relational element. And we came to an agreement, thankfully, we're married, that he could have those conversations. And now he's like, he loves tarot and, ask about meditation from time to time. And I'm just like, it's here when and if you're ever ready. But I feel like I have the space that I need in order to evolve to where I feel like I need to evolve, which is, it's really interesting because he's been grounding and a space of safety for me in a way that maybe I hadn't predicted that I needed, which is really cool. And in your experience too, and I've had this experience with other relationships, sometimes that doesn't materialize and the person just can't give you that space to be who it is that you are feeling deeply called to be. And I love that we are talking about that because I don't think we talk about it as much, the spiritual awakening part of the relationship evolution and what a huge part of that evolution it can be. And sometimes, you feel called, you're like, have to walk away. And sometimes you can find that not the same evolution, but enough space around the evolution that you can breathe. So I love that you mentioned that. You're also, I think, one of the first people on the podcast to call themselves a witch. So I would love, which I adore, I would love for you to talk about that identity, that that lineage and what it means to you. And I also noticed that you put the word slow living witch together, and maybe you can explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. The word witch came quite by accident, although I think from the outside, it didn't seem like it came out of nowhere to those watching, I think. But I had been coaching and doing some energy healing and walking this path, and I was working with a coach, a business coach, and I had this idea for a masterclass, and I was like, it's called Light Witchcraft for the Woo Curious. And when I told her the name of this masterclass, she was like, well, would you call yourself a witch? And I just had this moment of, I don't know, would I? So, of course, as we do, I took the question to Instagram and asked in my stories if anyone would be like taken by surprise if I started calling myself a witch. And like 90% of people answered either like, no, of course I wouldn't, or you don't already. So
I love that.
Okay.
I thought you were already.
I thought you were already a witch. And like looking at midwives are, some of the original witches are midwives. I'd been a midwife even before I was a midwife. I remember buying this beautiful handmade broom there's a broom shop in Vancouver, and I bought this beautiful handcrafted broom, and it hung in my kitchen. And so there was just all of these signs pointing to, oh, this woman has been a witch her whole life. But
she's just now realizing it.
I love that. Realizing, oh yeah, I dressed up as a witch for 50% of Halloweens. It was all there. The writing was on the wall. And as I started to play with this term and step into it and adapt, take it on as part of the role I'm walking in this life, I started to, think about what it meant to me to be a witch. And it's in a lot of ways a reclamation of that word. The word really just means wise woman. And it's been twisted and turned into something that is evil and dark and scary and needs to feed on the blood of little children by the Christian patriarchy that we live in. And so for me, the claiming of the title, speaking it out loud and proudly, it's about living in rhythm with my body. It's about living in rhythm with the natural world. It's about recognizing the ensoulment of the world, that for me, animism is part of how I move in the world. The interconnectedness of all beings, the connector of humans together as well. That kind of, if you think about that community hub, or the wise women of the community, the healer, the midwife, the person who tends to those in need and is there for the people who don't have the support in the community. All of those things are wrapped into how I view witchcraft.
Ooh, I love it. It's not just spells and cauldrons and brooms.
No. In fact, I think the reason I talked about light witchcraft when I said that, it was both that kind of play on words of it's not, it's not really super serious and heavy and it's a little taste, but it's also this sense of it's light. If you're watching, you can see that I'm not wearing black. I don't have the witch aesthetic. Halloween, Samhain is the only time I go in for that witchy, black, moody aesthetic. I am very much, about just that kind of the lighter, more just finding the beauty in the simplicity of things. And I don't cast spells. It's too much work to look up all the ingredients. I'm a lazy witch.
You're a lazy witch. I love that.
I think
that's a great Instagram handle, lazy witch.
Yeah, maybe I should switch my slow living to lazy. I've made Instagram posts about I am the laziest witch.
I don't know.
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, I like that. There's beauty in the simplicity and the path revealing itself to you in the simplest, clearest of ways. That's so beautiful. And I can't remember where I heard this, but it was literally in the last few days. Someone was talking about how, because you mentioned you've been a midwife as well. And it's so interesting how witch and midwife seem to go together. And that's where the rumor or the mysticism around the witches eating the babies came from, because women would go to these midwives for abortions, basically. And that, women would go and they'd come back without a baby, and for various reasons. And that's kind of where that type of dark characterization may have come from. I thought that was so interesting. It's interesting that you have both sides of that coin, having been a midwife and finding your witchery. So it's fascinating. So go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, it's that, during the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries in, 16th, 17th centuries in Europe, it was the church was really trying to consolidate power, control of the land. And so up until that point, the land was commons. It belonged to the people. There were villages, there was parcels where certain people lived, but it wasn't owned. It was collectively worked and farmed. And so there was collective wealth in a way. It was a hard life, but there was no ownership of the land to speak of. And the desire was for wealthy would-be landowners to take control of the commons, and with the church at the forefront. And to do that, they had to take the power away from those, again, the power centers, the wisdom centers. They needed the people to view the church as the source of healing and wisdom and arbitration and all of these things. And so they had to take it away from the people who were the source of that, which were the women, the healers, the midwives, the people who took care of the villages and the well-being of the villagers.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good piece of history to know, because it's intertwined with so much that happened during that time. All around King James, which is, I am so fascinated. I know, who was this guy? The persecution of women. He clearly hated women. I mean, he wrote a whole, I forget what it's called, but it was demology, something about
demonology.
Demonology. There we go.
Yeah. And he basically invented the witch trials. The witch hunts.
Yeah. He's responsible for tens of thousands, if not more, women being killed all across Europe, and set the kind of framework for what we would see at a smaller scale in the States. But he's also the guy whose translation of the Bible we all read.
Yeah, I know. And then you wonder why the Bible seems to hate women so much, when in the original writing down of it, there was a lot more space there for the powerful women of the biblical story to be present.
That just blew my mind when I made those connections. The Bible, King James time, the witch trials, women losing their prominence as healers and leaders, and nature communicators. I mean, what a shame. But it's rising. It's coming back.
Sure is.
right now. And so with that in mind, what do you think is being called forward for witches to help us remember right now?
For me, and the part of the remembering that I feel like it's part of my job here to talk about or to spread, it is that you've touched on it, the reconnection with the natural world as part of us and us as part of it. It's impossible to move back into a place in this world of balance and reciprocity without remembering that we are not separate from nature. That was a very, again, 18th century philosophers created this, Descartes, I think, therefore I am, mind over matter, rational thought over emotional wisdom. This was a man who deeply hated his fallible body and decided that we should all just be brains, basically, and that to debase ourselves and be part of nature made us lesser than. We couldn't preside over the beasts of the earth and of the air if we weren't separate from them somehow.
Yeah, we're like the rulers of the earth. Everything else
Exactly.
is below humanity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, below
I-
men.
Yeah, yes, exactly, precisely. And so for me, a big part of the journey is reconnecting with my Celtic roots and the Celtic wisdom, because it is, even in Celtic Christianity, you see a lot more earth-based wisdom, a lot of preaching that, you don't need a church. The land is your church. They existed, but there was a lot of Celtic Christian leaders who were like basically excommunicated from the church because they were like, but the land and the earth and the beings upon it. So that for me is my kind of part in this movement, is reconnecting, especially women. That's who I work with primarily, though men can be witches as well, but with the rhythms and the connection to our own bodies that are these beautiful microcosms and mirrors for the natural ebbs and flows of energy as we move through the seasons, and to create those kind of mycelial networks of connection among us again as we reclaim this power.
Oh, I love that. Mycelial networks. That's been coming up a lot for me personally in the last few weeks. So
The fungi are the best.
the fungi, the real, I used to think of it as the brains of the forest, but it's really the heart of the forest, of the land. It's running underneath. You don't see it, but it's there. And it's very
It's
real.
almost like the nervous system, the
Nervous
whole
system, yeah.
cardiovascular and nervous system of the earth. We have rain because we have fungi.
Tell me more.
So this is like a fascinating point that I learned. I was reading a book called Ways of Being by James Bridle. Really cool book. But part of the deforestation of rainforests and the earth, even when we replant forests, we have less rain than we did before, because the spores from certain types of fungi are what allow water droplets to form in the air around them to cause clouds, rain clouds. So there's certain fungi that their spores are the basis for our clouds, which allows us to have rain. And so, even if we clear cut a jungle, it dries out, we try to replant it, we reforest it, but it doesn't have those layers and that whole ecosystem and the mycelial network. The rain doesn't come back just because the trees do.
Interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, I remember being in the Amazon and had an incredible time. But there was one moment as we were getting further and further into the Amazon, before we gotten over into the river network, the actual Amazon part of it, that there was all these forests on the kind of mainland that had been clear cut. And we were just driving past it. And it was, you could see the deep red brown soil. And I remember seeing this single macaw just fly over that ground, and I'll never forget it. It was so poignant. I was like, this is like what you would see in a Fern Gully movie. It was just like that beautiful representation of biodiversity and life and flight, and the pure devastation that we brought onto that system. I mean, it was so hurt my heart, but we can do so much better, and we're being called to do, and we really have to acknowledge where we've been in order to get nice and clear about where it is that we want to go. And we need visionaries now. We need women. We need leaders. We need people who are thinking differently and can imagine a new way. So I would love to hear more about rest as resistance as well.
Yeah, the phrase itself comes from Tricia Hersey. I just want to credit her and her work. The Nap Ministry is her Instagram, and she's a powerful woman for sure. But I started down the path of being really passionate about rest and reclaiming our right before I'd ever heard of her. I think this is another piece of something that I'm seeing really start to rise up. when I first started my coaching journey, I wasn't yet ready to embrace the woo that I was also immersing myself in. And so I came at it as like, I'm going to coach women how to take their time back and rest. But the more that I kind of started to dive deeper into that and blend the two, the more it became so apparent to me that in order for us to reconnect our relationships with our bodies, with the earth, with each other, we need to slow down enough to be able to do so. We need to slow down enough to be able to hear the wisdom that our bodies have for us, to have the time to notice the magic that the earth holds for us, to be able to acknowledge the griefs and the pain and the joys and the magic, all of that. When we're so head down, pushing through our fatigue, pushing through all of what life is throwing at us, always trying to produce more faster, we aren't able to connect to what we need to remember our power and the importance of finding some sort of balance again, not only for ourselves, but for our relationship with the earth as well and our future here.
I love that. It resonates deeply with me. And for me, my way of finding that rest is multifaceted as it is, I'm sure, for you. But one of the ways is meditation. It's like creating that spaciousness, that time. That's why I'm so perplexed, yet I understand why people think of it as something that's like, oh, that's a nice to have if you have time for meditation. But we're busy and this and this and I get it. But without that time to really deeply listen and reconnect with yourself, you're missing this whole you're not becoming aware of the base code of your being. Yeah. And by having this time, that base code starts to come forward and you start to see all these connections that you just would not have seen if you didn't create the space and the time and the listening. And so it becomes, to your point, absolutely critical for evolution, the new earth, if you want to call it that, for us stepping into a prosperous, powerful time as a species together. Developing that ability to sit with yourself and hear yourself and know that, you know what, I can't push through these 3 meetings today. I need to cancel them, and I need to spend today just reconnecting to myself. And I say that as an entrepreneur, so it's very hard. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the practicalities of being, a business owner, and a woman business owner at that, which we have unique challenges to deal with in that whole space. But we're a lot of times it's been challenging for me because I'm coming at business in the container of what the patriarchy has created.
Yes.
As this 100%. Is how you run a business. This is how you scale a business. This is how you fund a business. This is how you push things forward. It looks like this kind of schedule. It looks like this kind of experience. And I will be honest, myself have hit times where I'm like, the burnout is real and I've gone past my capacity and I got to reel it back. So how do you navigate that side of burnout and hustle culture and also being an entrepreneur?
Not gracefully. It's perfect timing for this conversation. My clients will know that I often say like, can I swear on this podcast?
Oh, go for it, please.
Fuck boss babe. Fuck hashtag boss babe. Yeah. I want moss babe. And I actually have my one of my clients gave me this beautiful, it's like a piece of bark with some moss, and she got the letters hashtag moss babe on it for me.
I love it.
It's everything that I wish to be. And it has been, I think, part of my learning journey. For anybody who knows anything about human design, I'm a 6/3 projector. So I'm here to like mess up and trial and error and then share about it and let people know.
Love it.
And so I'm on it's been a roller coaster of entrepreneurship for sure. I've been a straight A student my whole life. I'm a recovering perfectionist, firstborn daughter, high achiever.
So am I. Oh my gosh, we have a lot in common.
We do. So it's even yesterday, it was the first day of my bleed. And it hit me the first day of my bleed. I have low energy. I'm crampy. The rest of my cycle is pretty okay. I have my ups and downs, and I had the luxury yesterday. I could have just done nothing. I wanted to take a bath and read a book and go back to bed and all of these things. And I actually had the space on my calendar. I could have done that. And I felt behind in some things. And so I tried to do all day. I didn't get almost anything accomplished. And I ended up exhausted with a headache at the end of the day. And I sat down to my pages this morning. I was like, okay, do I have to keep learning this lesson? But it's so hard when we are raised in a culture from a very young age. It's very much programmed into our subconscious that we are only worthy when we're of service or producing something. And we're only lovable when we're of service or producing something. And even though my rational brain has long since divested of that notion, it's still in my body. And so it's really, really hard. And slow, tiny shifts and continuing to hold compassion for myself when I have those moments like this morning, I could look back and be like, oh, poor one day younger Eileen.
Yeah.
It's like looking at your inner child, but she's only, 40 years old plus a month and 5 days instead of a month and 6 days or whatever it might be. But
I love that.
being able to just have that compassion and then sit in reflection and with luck, the next time, remember that lesson so that I can just give myself the day.
Oh my gosh, I resonate with that so deeply. I think this week has been a huge challenge for me personally. It's interesting because I've found that, if I'm speaking at an event or I have this kind of like high moment, that really feels very aligned. It feels great. I'm like, ooh, I performed. I like crushed it. I also, that word crush it, we need to think of something else. And then you come back home, and I've noticed that this has been my work this week. I've noticed that space between the performance and then we could call like normal Crystal that's on the couch, Crystal that's not in meditation, that's just maybe on her phone or watching TV, is still worthy. Because I think for me growing up, and I'm sure it's not malicious or anything, but what happened was more attention was projected from output and what you're talking about, achievements, and being of service, helping with X, Y, and Z. Women are really expected to do that. And not as much attention in just being, just sitting at the dinner table, just because you're there, And this is so interesting about spiritual work because there's so many levels to that. And the more work you do, you start to really get down to like these much more subtle but powerful levels.
Yeah.
And this week I was just working on, you know what? You're worthy on the couch. You're worthy not up on stage leading a class or a talk. You're worthy in your rest. To your point, you're worthy in your rest. I mean, and the irony is that in your rest is where you find alignment, and it's actually where the doing becomes much easier. It's when you're like the pushing and the hustle and the forcing. Now there's a balance between the masculine and the feminine, but when the doing's coming from that quiet, aligned place, it's a whole different type of doing. It doesn't feel exhausting because you're you're clear, you're connected, you're aligned. And wow, what a lesson to integrate as an entrepreneur.
Yes. Yeah. It takes so much kind of returning and remembering and practicing and letting that space be there at the creativity too, right? As entrepreneurs, we need to continue to be creative. We create. That's part of what we do. Whether or not you're whatever kind of entrepreneur you are, you're creating something. And without the space and time to rest and dream, we can't create, at least not from, again, a place of aligned authenticity where it resonates and calls others in. It's like that forced output.
The forced output. Yeah. And you mentioned the first thing you said was like, not gracefully. And it's like giving ourselves that permission to try something. You pushed through, you learned something from it. You know, I didn't cancel those 3 meetings as well and just kept on going. Now I know where I end up with that. I end up angry at my husband. Everything's his fault. My cat's just trying to get my attention. I'm not giving him any. You know, it's just like you start to, okay, this just doesn't end up working.
Yeah.
And if you continue to push through it, I really do believe that you end up at that point where you're so separate from yourself and from nature that you start to get really ruled by your ego. And I think that's what we're seeing on a leadership stage right now on the planet is a lot of people that are terrified of losing their sense of self. And we can talk about transhumanism and all that stuff. What does that even mean? But it seems like an increasing disconnect from nature and who it is that we are. And so
it's that like that disconnect from nature and each other and continuing to build like a fortress out of yourself is it's so hard to watch. I often think too, you know, that we talked about that separation between human and nature, or we're going to say man and nature because that's where it originated. We're gonna leave it with them, but
leave it with them.
You can't. Capitalism doesn't work unless we are distance and separate from nature because it is extractive and exploitative and harmful. And if you love something and recognize it as kin, it's much harder to harm it. And so that's, I mean, we see it between populations of humans. We make them the other. It's easier to hurt them, to turn a blind eye to the harms. If we other things, it's easier to say, well, I can just extract and take, and it's not a living being or creature that there's reciprocity there with, if it's something completely alien or other to ourselves. And so I think there's this deep wounding that so many people are walking around with that they don't recognize from that divorcing of self from the greater web of beings. Because even if you feel like you're separate from nature or think you are, you aren't.
Right.
And you're walking around with this untruth and clinging to it as it feels worse and worse in your body.
I just want to double click on all of that got chills. That was beautifully said. So I'll leave it there for everybody. Rewind, listen to that part again. That was very important. Yeah, that's interesting to think about people walking around unaware of the wound of being separate from nature has caused. And it so explains at a very foundational level the turmoil that we're going through as a species because of that wound and our insistence to hold on to it and to not heal it and to not face it. And that's so much of this work is about getting quiet enough and strong enough and courageous enough to see that you have a wound on you, in you, and to be able to start to address that and sit with that. And so many ways the world needs that healing. So one more question here. This will probably come out in November towards the end of the month. this time of year, from your perspective, what should we be thinking about? What should we be doing or not doing?
Doing a lot of resting. This is, so I follow the Celtic Wheel of the Year, which is, if they wouldn't have considered it a calendar, but it is a calendar of sorts, a way of noting the seasons and moving with them. And we are in the Celtic winter. So Samhain, which begins on the eve of October 31st on our modern day calendar and runs through to Imbolc, which is February 1st, is winter, which is a bit different than how we view our seasons now. So the winter solstice is the depths of winter. It is midwinter, just like the summer solstice is midsummer. It's the middle of summer, even though now we say it's the beginning. And so with November, we're really moving in deeper into that dark towards that longest night. This is a time energetically of dreaming, of resting, of incubating, planting those seeds that need to lie dormant for a time in the dark and the cold in order to gestate. And so I often think about it as like a dream time. It's a really, really potent time of creation. If you think about it in terms of, your cycle, if you're a woman, it's like your bleed. There's magic and there's a need for deeper rest. And so it's a really beautiful time to start practicing giving yourself just a little bit more. Maybe it means you sleep in an extra 15 minutes or you go to bed half an hour earlier and like indulge in those kind of slower moments of the day. And again, every one of us has a greater or lesser ability to do this. If you work a 9-to-5, your boss is still going to expect you to have outputs and all that jazz, despite this really not being a season that calls for that. So allowing yourself the tender, slow moments where you can catch them. Really, leaning into the dark. I used to hate the winter. I do not like being cold. And now with this, I actually, it's my favorite in terms of the celebration of these seasonal moments. I love when Samhain arrives and I love winter solstice and that permission to be in the dark with candlelight and cozy and not doing. It feels like a permission slip to me, and it's been a powerful one.
I love that. Permission slip. This is your permission slip to slow down, dream, create some space for rest and whatever that means for you. Maybe that's a little hot chocolate in a bath at the end of your day, or ramping up some evening meditations to start to really, I love working with sunrise and sunset because it's constantly shifting throughout the years. And we're so, with artificial light, we're so kind of desensitized to it. But if you can time your practice, and when I was doing this, I kind of lost it a little bit, but I might go back to it. I will go back to it. When I was doing this, where I would meditate before the sunrise and come out of meditation as the sun rose, and then go into meditation as the sun's setting, and you come out and it's night. There's something very powerful about that. And it was forcing me, it was a forcing function to better organize my day and to actually shut off at certain times, to like start at certain times. I love to keep my mornings really easy. I try not take meetings before 10 a.m. my time so that I have that time to align. I'm teaching spiritual practices. I have to make sure that I'm walking that talk, and I'm trying to close right around sunset. So yeah, that really resonates with me, and you've inspired me to make sure I keep that in my practice, because those weeks go by in a much more easeful way, and everything feels kind of connective and not this box and this box and this box. Beautiful. So I ask everybody this set of rapid fire questions as we close.
Okay.
So the first one is, what is one belief you've had that you no longer believe?
Ooh. I mean, I used to believe that when we die, we were dead, and the only thing that happened was we turned to dirt.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. I definitely don't believe that anymore.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
What do you believe consciousness is?
Oh, the word collective immediately came into my mind, and for me, it just felt like this sense of this infinite awareness that is being not funneled, but like it's almost like a lens, like it's being focused through a body, and so we each get a different taste of what it is like for us, but there's no separation.
Love that. What is source, God, or oneness to you?
A very similar thing to what I just described. I think it is for me when I connect in, it always starts with the heartbeat of earth, but it's so much bigger than that. And so it is that ensoulment of every single living, non-living entity on this earth and beyond this earth.
And if it's 100 years in the future, what do you hope for humanity?
So much peace and connection with one another, with the earth, a harmony and a reciprocity that we've long forgotten.
And how can people find you, Eileen, if they want to connect further?
Either on my website, which is myluminouslife.ca. I've got a 50-page-ish ebook called Awaken to the Magic Within, if anyone's wanting to kind of dive a little deeper into a lot of what we talked about today. That's available for free on my website. Or come find me on Instagram at I am Eileen March. Send me a message. It's me in the DMs. I run all of my own stuff still at this point, so you can catch me in either of those places.
Amazing. And we'll drop that in the show notes as well. Eileen, this has truly been such a incredibly timely, needed, and beautiful conversation. So thank you so much for sharing yourself with us for this chat today. And we will see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for journeying with us today, Light Being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul-nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.